Welcome back to Reliving Retro. We're here with myself, Rigney, and Yaiser. Travis is not with us today, but we do have a RP. It's not that serious. He's going to be fine. But we do have a very special guest, and I'll allow him to introduce himself.
Hi, thanks for letting me join in on the podcast. I'm really excited to be here. My name is DMCPCRT. You can just call me DMC for short. I understand that handle is awful. When I was brainstorming usernames and ideas for that, that's what came up at the time. And I'm like, this probably isn't going to go anywhere. Welp. So, but mainly I do TikTok, as silly as that sounds, content creation there for retro gaming and gaming in general. I do talk about computers and, some modern games as well, but a lot of stuff is mainly NES, Super Nintendo, Genesis, PlayStation 2 and back, if you will. So, I do occasionally post on Instagram, but that's more of a just like as I'm going about my day kind of thing. Like, I'm at Salvation Army and check out this controller I found or something like that. Right. But mainly the content will come from TikTok and occasionally YouTube.
Cool.
Very cool. Just a couple kind of get to know you kind of questions. Sure. How old are you? So like what were your first gaming systems that you grew up with?
All right, so I'm in my early 30s. So
Same.
when I I'm the youngest of four. So a lot of people ask me, like, what was like your first gaming memory, or like what got you into games? They were just there. Like, systems were there already. We had a Sega Genesis and a Nintendo, and I just remember playing those as I was growing up. Essentially, some of my earliest memories were playing things like Sonic 2, Castlevania, Dick Tracy for the NES, and
weird one, but cool.
Yeah, it is a weird one. I just remember always trying to drive around, and I liked the music. That's where a lot of like early gaming comes from my memories. It was like I remember the music,
Yeah,
and I think that's a big reason why I still love Sonic 2 is because that soundtrack from front to back is just perfect. There's no bad songs in that, and that's probably like my first real video game that I loved, where I realized like there's more to this. Like, I'm liking this more than other ones for some reason, and it was the colors are bright and fast, and it's got an awesome soundtrack. So yeah, those are what I started with. We did get a Super Nintendo a couple years, I guess, after I was born, and then I remember we got a PlayStation 1 a couple years after that came out, and then from there.
Awesome. Cool. Do you have a favorite console of all time?
So I like to say I have the two answers to this question. I feel like there's, in my opinion, the best console and my favorite console. The best console is the PlayStation 2, in my opinion. That catalog is huge, which is, I guess, on point for our topic today. It's got so many great games. And, for early 3D, it still has a lot that hold up today. And then my favorite, though, is the Super Nintendo, which is, I'm sure so many people say that, but the amount of games you can play on there, even if you do like, older sports games, some people still like to play the NHL games. The RPG catalog on that is insane. And then, of course, your side scrollers and action adventure games and all that. So, yeah, the Super Nintendo plus that sound chip is legendary. So
yeah, it really
the music from that is so good.
Definitely.
It's funny because I think I actually have the same exact answers that you have. I think the best console of all time is probably the PS2, which is, makes sense. It's actually sold the most of any other console, I believe, or at least last time I looked.
The Wii, I believe, dethroned
the Wii
that.
passed it.
The Wii made it.
And then I know like the lifespan of the PS2 is insane. Like I think it came out in like 2000 or 2001, and it wasn't discontinued until like 2014. Or something like that.
It kept going for a long time, which is just a testament to how good it was. It also helps that when people were making games with the Wii, they just kept porting over to the PS2 because there's 180 million or whatever out there. So might as well.
Yeah. And then my favorite of all time is the Super Nintendo.
Exactly.
All right. So I guess we can get into it. This week we played the PS2 game Stuntman, and I guess DMC, you can kick it off here. What did you think of the story?
Well, I'll admit I didn't finish the game. I tried to, but it was just a busy week, and I got about, I'd say, halfway through from what I read online. I finished a couple of the movies. As far as story goes, from what I can tell, it's trying to put you in the place of the stuntman, and it's not really a story from what I could tell. It's just kind of feeling like you're behind the scenes. So I can't really knock it to say that since it doesn't have a story, it doesn't deserve a rating. So I just looked at it how they presented this, and I thought there was some cool factoids, like the cannon that they told you about when you had to do the specific jump where your car had to turn over when you got hit. So that kind of stuff, pulling back the curtain was cool. So, am I allowed to give half stars, or am I?
Yeah,
okay, so I'd give it probably just a dead center 2.5 stars, because there's not much of a story to it, but the little factoids for movie making was cool.
I get it. So I had a hard time with story, actually, but I think I'm right where you are at 2.5, because the story of the game itself, like you're saying, it's you're a stuntman doing movies. But there's stories within the story, right? So after every movie you finish, they give you a trailer to that movie with like
Point.
your gameplay in there, and it's like
Yeah.
it gives you a whole story of a whole nother movie. So I was conflicted with this one, but I went right down the middle too, man. 2.5.
I actually thought that was a really cool feature.
Yeah.
That they'll show you. It's not like a stock footage of, just the AI completing
Right.
the missions or whatever. They show you your gameplay
Your
footage,
stunts, yeah.
which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
I know it's not necessarily something that was like ahead of its time or anything like that. I just thought it was a nice touch.
Yeah.
And I also had a hard time with story here because, like you both said, it doesn't really like have a story to the game. I mean, you play a stuntman. I do like all like the behind the scenes stuff that they showed. I thought that was all really cool.
That was cool.
I gave it a 3. I think I really, really like the fact that I just love the idea that you're just a stuntman and you're not doing all of these other crazy like missions. It's not like Grand Theft Auto where you do have to do like stunts and stuff like that in that game with all this other story wrapped around it. You're just the stuntman. You're just here to do that, and you play multiple roles as a stuntman in the movies, and I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's a good way of looking at it. Plus, I mean, I don't want to sound like an old man right off the bat, but they don't make them like this anymore. As far as we're gonna make a game where you play as a stuntman and that's it.
And that's
Like,
it.
there's no growth really. There's no character development. It's just, hey, do the stunts. Like I can see if I was a 13-year-old kid hopped up on Monsters, like the idea of playing as a stuntman would be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. I really enjoyed this game
for sure. All right, then, Yaiser, you want to take it with you want to get into it with gameplay then?
Gameplay? Yeah, sure, of course, man. I gave it 4 stars on gameplay. Nice. I really enjoyed this game. So I'm a fan of driving games. I've been like a fan of a lot of racing games, starting from, probably Gran Turismo 2 is what really got me into them. And all the way up through like the Forza Horizons and all that shit. So the driving aspect of this game was really fun. I like trying to go through the scenes, not really knowing what the fuck you're going through. You just got to listen to the guy in your ear, and you're gonna crash into some cars that you don't expect, but it's like trial by error type of shit.
Yeah, for sure.
But I had a lot of fun playing this game. I really did. And 4 stars. I wish I'm gonna say this probably 10 times during this podcast, but I wish I could play more of this game than I was able to.
Yeah, DMC. I don't know if you saw Yaiser's playthrough or not that we put up on YouTube, but he was unable to complete the game, as was I. I actually have the actual game. Yaiser's picking it up right now. Don't open it up. Nice, very good.
Nice.
Yeah, so I have the actual game. However, I don't have a PS2 anymore, so I couldn't play it. But I was playing it on an emulator, just like Yaiser was, and for whatever reason, the North American version glitches on like the 3rd or 4th. It's like the 3rd or 4th mission. It's still the first game. It's still the first movie. Yeah, gotcha. But it glitches to the point where when you're the cop car and you're chasing another car, the car like drives into a fence, and then like the AI car drives into a fence, and you can't chase it anymore.
Just bugs out.
Yep.
That's
and
weird.
Then the same thing happens on the second movie. So neither one of us got to play further than the second movie.
Right.
Oh wow. Okay. I got into the 3rd movie then, so
nice.
I'm pretty sure at least.
The 3rd movie is the one with the tuk-tuks, right? You're driving around like the little like.
You know what? I think I finished the 2nd movie last night, did the stunt in the arena afterwards, and was like, all right, I'm going to pick up the 3rd movie if I had time today. So
yeah. The arena stunts are really cool too. That's another feature of this game that I love, where you can go into an arena and just make your own stunts.
Yeah. I didn't mess around with any of that, but I saw that you could like build your own shit. That looked pretty cool. But
yeah, it is
unlock
really cool.
A lot of stuff after every mission, so I'm sure there's a bunch that you can do.
Yeah,
for sure.
Looked cool.
I gave gameplay 3.5. I almost gave it a 4, but I felt like I had a really hard time controlling this car, and I don't remember if that was just the PS2's controls or not, but I felt like Grand Theft Auto controlled much better than this game.
These controls are loose. Yeah.
Really?
Interesting.
Yeah,
so it was
like
the same
GTA 3 and like Vice City and all that. It felt exactly the same.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I felt like it was worse than GTA.
Did you use your analog to steer, or
I did. I did.
See, I was steering with D-pad. I feel like in those type of games, steering with D-pad is way easier than
Probably.
trying to do with
I
the
had to use the
analog.
D-pad. I tried
Yeah.
using the analog sticks, and it just was
It's
it was
tough.
too boat-like.
Yeah.
If you want to compare it to Grand Theft Auto, I don't know if you remember the Buffaloes, those cars. They're kind of like
Yeah.
they feel like they have a giant butt and they swing
Yeah,
around.
yeah.
That's what a
Yep.
lot of the cars felt like. And I did look it up.
Yeah.
I actually did get about halfway through Blood Oath, which is the third movie. I didn't
Okay,
get to
cool.
any
Okay,
tuk-tuks, but I did. There's a lot of highway scenes. It kind of made me think of like the Matrix when they're on the freeway, you know?
Okay, I
Oh,
think the
nice.
fourth movie then is the one with the tuk-tuks. That's the one where I always got stuck as a kid. So that's how I know like the actual game is fine, but for some reason those ISOs that you download to play for the emulators, they just keep bugging out for whatever
Yeah,
reason.
bad rip or
like,
something,
even when not bugging out, they're laggy as shit.
Yeah, they're pretty rough. But yeah, so DMC, would you give the gameplay for this one?
I would give the gameplay I'd say a 3. That's where I landed on with that as well. While there was times where the controls just felt really loose, and I that drives me crazy. I felt like I wish it would have been better if it was a bit more arcadey. So it was like bizarre, like trying to fit between being a sim and arcadey at the same time. Because there was sections where like I would roll my car after just barely touching something, and it would just roll for what felt like forever. And then other times where like I would just barely like touch a car and nothing would even happen to mine. So it was just very, very bizarre, But as far as the actual gameplay goes, yeah, I'd say 3. Like you said, the arena stunts you had to do between movies was fun. When you were pulling off actual stunts itself, yeah, it was satisfying. It was rewarding. There was a little bit of it that was unforgiving. Again, like I said earlier, it's a practice of futility and frustration until you get it done. And the thing, like you were saying though, too, using the D-pad almost felt like it had to be done because some of those, it was such pinpoint accuracy that you had to get between these two cars, or go around this one bus or something like that. So yeah,
Right.
but overall, I'd say 3. Land on that.
Okay, definitely fair enough.
Yeah.
Yaiser, you want to start us off with the visuals of the game?
Visuals, yeah. I can. I went 3.5, but I think I'm gonna knock it down to 3. I'm gonna go 3 on visuals.
Okay.
All the different car designs were pretty cool. I thought it reminded me a lot of like that generation of GTA games. Like it looked exactly like that. Even like the cars looked like that too. It all reminded me of that. Even like the first I guess stunt in the first movie, they don't tell you the controls really of the game. You just like jump into it, but it's like do a handbrake turn in the box and go the other way. And I'm driving. I'm like, I don't know the controls, but it looks like GTA, so I'm gonna hit triangle to use to do this turn,
Right.
and it worked. So it's like it felt and looked exactly like those early GTA games. And some of those cars were pretty dope, like driving through like explosions and shit and jumping through the trains and stuff. I thought it looked pretty cool. I'm going to take that 3 back, and I'm going to stick with my 3.5.
It's funny you mentioned driving through the train. Sorry to cut you off there, Rick,
No, you're good.
but that was actually something I did want to touch on. That I did like how you could skip something if you were having a hard time with it, as long as you got to the timed gate next. I could not make it in time to that stupid train. Every time I tried to get through that section, I missed it. So I said, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to go right past it and get to the next gate to finish the scene. And I liked that there was a little bit of forgiveness there.
Yeah,
and if it wasn't for that, I probably would have put the score down to a 2 as far as the gameplay goes. But because you could have a little bit of wiggle room, that kind of brought it up for me, because they made it a little bit more accessible.
I get it.
There was some of those stunts that were just like, I'm not going to try and get through that train again.
Yeah, I had trouble on that same level with the falling chimneys.
Yep, that was another thing I skipped. I went right on the outside. I'm like, you know what?
Sometimes you
I
gotta
don't
just
know
drive around
why
them.
they kept crushing me. I felt like I made it with so much speed, and nope.
Yeah.
I think that stunt in particular, the jumping through the train, might be the most satisfying stunt through the first couple movies anyway.
Oh, definitely.
Being able to go off that jump and make it through the train just looked so good.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll have to take your
too.
word for it.
Yeah, for sure. I gave the visuals a 3. I feel very similar to Yaiser in the sense that this game looks and just reminds me so much of Grand Theft Auto, even to the point where I would flip my car I would try and turn it over. You know how you could do that
Like
in
in
Grand Theft Auto, where it
every
makes
time.
zero sense. Like just turning your wheel inside a flipped car would turn the car over, but
Right.
you could do that in GTA for whatever reason.
Mhm.
I kept trying to do that in this game, and I couldn't do it. And I was just like, oh yeah, that's GTA. You can do that.
Yeah.
But no, I thought the sceneries looked really good, and I think my favorite part about the sceneries is they weren't like, they were realistic in the sense that they weren't like cartoony. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it was like grayish, like color scale, which made it seem more realistic, which I thought was actually way better than like normally in these types of games. I feel like, especially like this generation, I feel like it wouldn't look as realistic as, I mean, it did for this generation, obviously.
Yeah, I'm with you.
DMC, what did you give it for visuals?
2.
2.
Okay.
But some of the points you actually bring up that you liked as points that I hated. I thought the Toothless and Whopping was just this gray, muddy mess. And I understand for like the geographical location, it's not a sunny area. I get
Right.
it. But it was all just this wall of gray with, you know, gray walls, gray floor, gray cars, gray sky. It was all just gray. And I'm sure part of it is due to performance. I don't know if the emulator might have helped you guys' frame rate, but playing it on the actual hardware, it was some of this was like down to the teens when there was stuff going on, and it was a little jarring, especially when you have to be accurate with your controls to have the frame rate go that low. Excuse me.
There you go.
The visuals overall, like even when we went into the next one, which was the whooping and a hollering, the Dukes of Hazzard ripoff, that like I'm supposed to be in the woods and forests, and it's like, let's just use the most bland gray greens that we can instead of, you know, like kind of a popping green like it should be. And that just kind of, that turned me off a bit. A lot of it was muddy. And going back to Grand Theft Auto as a comparison, I feel like a lot of those cars, they still kind of shine, you know, they still have a little bit more character to them. And the environments, even for a game that doesn't really look that good, Grand Theft Auto, they rely on a good color palette, at least, to make things kind of look more fitting. And sure, if reality is what they're going for, I can understand why, you know, bland and kind of dirty. Yeah, not everything is, you know, sparkling clean.
Right.
But it's also a movie set. So I kind of feel like, you know, they kind of shine those up.
Yeah. No, I think you make a lot of great points with that. I will say for sure the GTA games do look better. It did remind me a lot of GTA though, playing this one.
I haven't played any of those old GTA games since
you played them back in the
day.
I still pop in Vice City here and there. I love that.
It's my favorite one.
It's the
same
best
here.
one.
I get to the third island in like an hour and a half. I love that game so
That's
much.
impressive.
That's cool.
All right, heading over the soundtrack, I'll start this one off. This didn't really, I mean, is there a soundtrack really? There's like the opening theme, right? And that's coolish, but I feel like it loops after like 10 seconds. Like, does it go further than that?
I don't know.
I don't even remember an opening theme that's really any impressive. It feels kind of like, you know, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater again, where it's got that, you know, 5-second intro song that just keeps going over and over, if anything. So you're probably right.
Yeah. So I gave it a 1.5 for just being like really underwhelming. It was underwhelming in a way where I was like, does this game have music? And then, but it wasn't like an annoying thing. Like, I could definitely give worse scores for a game annoying me with its music. This wasn't annoying. I just felt that there was a complete lack of it.
Okay. Yeah. So I didn't even like give a score. I just put a question mark because I had the same question. Like, was there music? Like, I don't even know. But all I remember is like the guy in your ear telling you where to go and driving. I don't remember music at all.
Right.
But I'm gonna, off of what you said, it could be annoying, like music that could annoy you. So I'm gonna go 1.52. That's a good point, because I was thinking about going 1, but like it could have been worse than no music, right? Annoying music is worse than no music.
I think so for sure.
Yeah.
There are certainly some games, especially like older like NES games, where like the soundtrack is awful and it just repeats. And
Back to the Future.
Yeah, it can be really, really bad. We've been fortunate so far that the games that we've played have all been relatively good. And so, you know, most of our overall scores have been better than average being like 2.5 out of 5 stars. So most of our, you know, all of our games have been better than average. And, you know, these guys are kind of like, are we going to ever play some bad games? I'm like, we'll for sure play some bad games.
Let me know when you guys get some bad games. I want in on that.
Okay.
If I may jump in on audio, I actually took 3 things into account when I was thinking about this. I took music into it, I took voice acting into it, and then I also took in like sound effects, because again, it's a Stuntman game, right?
True.
So as far as music goes, generic early 2000s, you know, kind of techno rock kind of stuff going on for, you know, the movie scenes. It's like, okay, whatever. It's forgettable. It's probably cheap for them to license, and it wasn't anything impressive. I'm not going to go on YouTube and be like, man, I want to type in the Stuntman soundtrack anytime soon.
No.
As far as the voice acting goes, I don't think they could have picked anyone who was more disinterested in being the Stuntman voice actor than the person that they did. Because so what we're going to go ahead and do here is we're going to do a stunt where I have to flip a car through fire rings. And it's like, dude, you're about to do some awesome stuff. Why don't you sound excited?
Yeah,
like,
right.
if I'm going to be this, 13, 14-year-old kid hopped up on Monster playing the Stuntman game, I want someone who's going to be like, we're going to blow stuff up, So that was kind of like, okay. And then the director, I actually kind of notched it up a little bit for the director because I liked how it's like, all right, like take one, he's kind of excited. And then, okay, if you screw up, it's like, all right, take two. And then
he
take
gets
three.
more and more disappointed.
And then if you can't get it after take three, he's like, all right, here we go again. And it's just like disappointed dad sound. And
That's
it's like,
funny,
all
yeah.
right. So there, that was fine. Where it did do well was the sound effects that were necessary. The train sounded good. The explosions sounded good. Stuff falling down had impact. Like that was, I guess you could call it satisfying. That kicked it up to the 2.5 range total for me, because what would be important would be sound effects. So crashing through the gates and bridges, that felt good. Going over jumps, the acceleration of the car sounded good. So the sound effects they nailed. Everything else was just a miss.
True. So, I guess when talking about soundtrack, that's really that is kind of really what I mean is like sound in general, but soundtrack is the first thing that I kind of think of when I think of sound.
And when it comes to like retro games, that's like the only sound that really matters. But when you're moving into like PS2 era, you've got more facets.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. That's a good way to think about it.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, what was your score for that?
I'm gonna go ahead and say I'll do 2.25. Can I do 2.25?
Sure, you can do whatever you want.
Sweet. All right, then 2.13. I'm just
kidding. 2.13.
But yeah, if it wasn't for the sound effects and the funny director, because he sounded funny when he was getting mad.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, no, I definitely think so too. Yeah, you brought up a really good point with like the explosions and all that stuff. I think we definitely overlook that in terms of just grading out soundtrack.
Yeah.
How well, DMC, I'll let you start with this one. How well do you feel that this game aged?
Oh boy. So it's always tough to look through this stuff through like a lens, especially as retro gamers, where we can be a little bit more forgiving of understanding it's a product of its time. So I think that's going to be a big factor into it. However, I think if this was a game that got remastered and put into a 60 frames and maybe a $15 PlayStation Network game, I think people would like it. I think it would be fun. The concept, like we were discussing, is almost universal. You are a stuntman that has to do stunts on set. That's pretty cool. And, movies are still fun. They're still blowing up cars. They're still driving through flaming rings and all that kind of stuff. So I think the concept aged well. I think the controls, with the similarity to Grand Theft Auto, that can be familiar. That was a good point you brought out there, Yaiser, where you're right. They don't tell you how to do anything. Like they don't say you need to accelerate pressing X. You need to, press L1 to activate the cannon. You just, it's just assumed you've played Driver or Grand Theft Auto at that point. So that also, I think, would help its case as far as aging, because the controls are familiar. The soundtrack isn't going to help it, because it's all, like I said, generic early 2000s garbo. And then the voice acting is mediocre. So I think as far as aging goes, though, especially if someone likes the PlayStation 2, yeah, I'd give it like a 2.5, maybe even a 3 as far as that, because it's still got core mechanics that are fine and familiar. And while I have been pretty aggressive on a lot of the rest of the score, I can't fault it for being almost 20 years old now. So I still found myself wanting to finish missions afterwards, even if I was frustrated. And I found myself hoping I had more time to play this game. So
yeah.
Yaiser, go ahead.
So I think I feel a little differently about this game than you two, man. I gave this a 4 as far as how well it aged, because I really enjoyed playing this game, and I was disappointed in the fact that I couldn't play more. Like, it made me a little bit sad. That was all the way. I played it all the way like back on Tuesday or whatever. I was like, what the fuck am I gonna do for the rest of the week? I can't play this game. I really want to play more of this game. I almost went up to my parents' house and searched it for a fucking PS2 so I could take Rigney's disc and go play it. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed the game. Even playing it like if you watch the playthrough that I did, the first segment I did, the textures were all just like flashy and it like was like hurt my eyes almost.
It was
but
really
I
bad.
still like was having fun playing, and then I eventually fixed the textures and whatever. But it still was laggy as shit. But I was still having fun playing the game. I really do like the concept of the game, and that's why I think I rated it so high. Like I said, I'm gonna say this a million times. I wish I could have played it more.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I gave Age to 3.5, and it was really just because what DMC said, I strongly agree with. I think if they remastered this game, people would love it.
Yeah.
And they have a sequel that came out for the PS2, PS3, and Xbox 360 called Stuntman Ignition.
I didn't realize it was on the 360 and PS3. Neat.
Yeah, and I really want to get the 360 version and see how good that game is.
Yeah,
that's a good idea.
But yeah, I think it aged pretty well. I do think that I think the controls really knocked it down, because I was considering giving it a 4, but the controls, just how loose the cars were, really bugged me. I thought that was it. There's definitely a learning curve to this game. You can't just jump into it and just know how to drive the car right away.
Yeah, no.
Even in your playthrough, Yaiser, you were saying that you didn't find it like that hard to drive the cars. Yeah. I mean, you were saying like it's not that much different than GTA, but in your playthrough, you were like, it's pretty hard to control this thing sometimes.
Well, yeah, I think he might have cut it out, but all the cars handled differently.
Yeah, they did.
So like at least there was that. Like there's that little like European, looks like it's supposed to be like a little old Beamer or something is what it looks like. That thing actually handled pretty well, I thought.
Right.
And then you got the big like Charger looking car you got when you're driving in the dirt. I think fucking handled like a boat, but it's like, kind of realistic. You're driving a big old rear wheel drive V8 car in dirt. It's going to be hard to drive,
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. No, I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was all pretty good.
So just to recap here, my overall score was a 3 stars flat here. Which it's weird. Like I'm kind of surprised it got the same as Monster Rancher 4 for me, because I feel like I enjoy Monster Rancher 4 so much more.
Oh, really?
But I guess like looking back at this game, I'm surprised that so many people know this game. DMC, have you ever heard of this game, or did you ever play it before?
I never played it before, but I remember. Did you ever watch X Play back in the day on like Tech TV and G4?
I did a little bit, yeah.
I remember they did a review of this and they gushed about it and they talked about it through several episodes. Now, of course, who knows if they were paid or whatever, but they definitely were fans of this game. And it was one of those ones that I was always like, I should pick that up. I should pick that up. And I'm really actually thankful that you guys kind of gave me the push with like, hey, this is the game we're playing. It's like, all right, finally, like nearly 20 years later, I'm going to take it on. So, but yeah, I definitely heard of it. And I knew there was a series between this and Ignition. I didn't know that was on the 360 and PS3. So that's awesome though.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest reasons why I'm so excited to be doing this podcast, is because there's so many games that I've always wanted to play, and for whatever reason I just never made myself play it or never got around to playing it. And now that it's on a list and now we have to play it,
it's the perfect excuse.
Yeah, like episode 2 Wild Guns has been my favorite game so far that we've gone back to play. And me and Yaiser were just playing it right before we started playing this. Right before we started recording this podcast. And I'm so glad that that this podcast made me go back and play it. I never thought that anything would ever crack my top 20 and top 15 list for Super Nintendo games, and that one 100% did.
That's awesome.
Up there.
Yeah. So the average the overall for Yaiser's was also a 3 on the nose.
Okay.
And for DMC it was a 2.45.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I score aggressively.
No, I mean that's perfectly fine though. Yeah. I mean, I feel maybe we're giving out maybe like 3.5s, maybe too leniently, but 100% I'm not giving out 5s unless I feel like it's my like if gameplay gets 5, it's one of my favorite games to play ever.
Right. It's got to feel good.
Yeah. Yep. The only 5 I've given so far, actually, I don't think I've given a 5.
I have.
You've only given a 5 to Super Mario Bros. Soundtrack, I think.
How can you not?
Yeah. And I haven't given a 5
at all.
yet, but I do know some that I'm reserving some 5s for. Actually,
man.
DMC, if you guys want to check him out, he's playing Earthbound right now.
Oh,
Yes,
Yep.
I am. Every Tuesday.
When do you play that? Every Tuesday?
Every Tuesday, if I can pitch it, 10:30 p.m. to 1:30 a.m. on TikTok. So, yep.
Yeah.
cool.
And that is going to get a couple 5s for me.
Yeah.
So
spoiler
far
alert.
it's been very impressive. I definitely have enjoyed the soundtrack, and the visuals are gorgeous. It's very unique. And again, it's my first time ever playing that one. So, very
I'm
fun.
looking forward to playing that. The way you talk about it, I'm like, fuck, I gotta play this.
Yaiser's a Chrono Trigger guy, and I'm an Earthbound guy, so we can't wait to play each other's games because I've never played Chrono Trigger, and he's never
I
played
actually
Earthbound.
just bought Chrono Trigger 2 days ago.
Nice.
Never played it?
Never played it. First time.
Oh my god.
That's awesome.
Very excited.
DMC, do you have any maybe like a game that maybe in your opinion doesn't get enough love that you would want us to add to our master list to eventually get to at some point?
Sure, absolutely. If we're going to talk PlayStation 2, one that I always try to pitch would be Armored Core 2. I
Okay, cool.
love that game.
Ooh, FromSoft.
Exactly. Yeah. It is. I can already tell you that the aging will be a little tricky on that one because they just ignored the analog sticks. So you have to use the D-pad. So
Okay.
it's a little tricky to control, but I love it. There's so many cool ways to customize that game. And if you've ever played an Armored Core game before, there's politics involved, and you can change the story based upon what missions you accept. So the outcome of the game is not going to be the same every time you play it, based upon what missions you accept, what faction you support, and that kind of stuff. I do like that a lot. And then if we can go back to PS1, Jade Cocoon, an RPG that's kind of Pokemon-esque and a little bit of Final Fantasy mixed together. It's not that long. I think it's like 18 to 20 hours. But that one is another like sleeper that I always suggest when I get a chance to.
I mean, Pokemon mixed with Final Fantasy sounds pretty fucking dope.
It's neat. It's unique, and I mean maybe it's a rose tinted glasses for me, but I love that. There's definitely I could probably give a 5 to at least one section of that game.
Cool.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely add both of those to the list. Jade Cocoon will go to our RPG / long play type of games probably. For those that don't know, we'll be reserving those longer type games for every season premiere from here on out. So episode 1 of season 2 will be an RPG, and that's to give us 2 weeks to play it, because I feel like with RPGs and longer games like that, it's hard to really digest the entire game in a week. So to be fair to the game, I really want to do 2 weeks for those longer type of games.
Yeah.
Right. I couldn't imagine trying to get through Final Fantasy 3/6 in a week. That's 40 hours of gameplay.
Right. Exactly.
Job. So
yeah. So we'll be having 12 episodes. This is episode 5. So we'll be having 7 more episodes after episode 12. Well, at the end of episode 12, we'll announce what RPG we'll be playing for the next 2 weeks. Then episode 13 will be our season recap, where we rank the 12 games that we played for the last 3 months, essentially
1 through 12.
Yes. And then the next episode will be the new RPG. But yeah, so I have a quick review here. Well, it's actually not quick at all. It's the longest review I've ever seen. Let's Play Classic Games over there. Yeah, Let's Play Classic Games on YouTube left this review for us for Stuntman, and he left paragraphs for each category. I'm not going to read all those on the show. You should definitely go check it out, though. It's a really, really well thought out and very thorough review.
Is there a conclusion paragraph?
Which is what I'm going to read.
Okay, good.
He said overall score. My overall score came out to be 4 stars, with this being one of my favorite games of all time. I may be slightly biased, but I think this game still looks great and is a blast to play. I love the challenge of the game. Having to work to get a perfect run is very satisfying. The only big negatives for some people I could see is that the soundtrack is a bit mediocre, and that it can be a pretty difficult game, especially if you don't understand vehicle physics, how heavy versus light cars handle and react, and how front wheel drive versus rear drive cars handle / react, etc., and how to control each vehicle is to its full potential.
That's totally fair. And actually, that reminds me of 1.2. I was thinking about that when I was doing a stunt. I paused the game to pull up the controls. You can't do that. You can't actually pause the game and look at the controls. You're just thrown in, and good luck. So if you want to look at the controls, I think you have to do it from the main menu. So that's just like a UI problem. But
yeah, and it's a very old school type of mentality too for a PS2 game. Like that's like NES kind of status, where it's just like, here's the game, figure it out.
That's a very good point. It does have that old school, just play the game. Good luck.
Yeah, 100%. All right, so we will be randomizing the game for next week. And here we go. All right. So for next week, we will be playing a side-scrolling action RPG for the Super Nintendo, published by Enix. Does DMC have any guesses so far?
Published by Enix. Oh boy, I don't have many Enix games, so no, I'm not sure.
This game is called Evo: The Search for Eden.
Okay.
Do you have this game, or have you ever played it before?
No, but a buddy of mine actually just told me yesterday, hey, if you want to borrow my copy of Evo, let me know. And I had no idea what he was talking about, but it was in relation to Super Nintendo, so
That's
now
funny.
I know.
Yeah. I actually used to have this game. It's quite pricey now. I mean, it was quite pricey when I had it. I believe it was a $180, $200 game then. It's about $320 now if you want to go out and get the real cart. $750 if you want it complete.
Jeez.
Yeah. Good luck with that one. But it is a lot of fun. It is, I believe, strictly just a one-player game. But Yaiser's brother will be on it, and he's going to be our guest for that one.
Nice.
It's going to be a lot of fun. DMC, can you tell everybody where to find you one last time?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again for having me on the show, too. My primary will be on my TikTok, same handle here of DMCPCRT. I go live on TikTok every Tuesday from 10:30 to 1:30 a.m. or 10:30 p.m. to 1:30 a.m. Eastern Standard. I do Twitch as well on Mondays. That's only from 10:30 to midnight, where we're going to start up Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening for the Switch this upcoming Sunday.
That game is so good.
So yeah, so I do that on Mondays as well, but it's just a lot shorter, and that's pretty much the only time I'm on Twitch. And then again, you can find me on Instagram. It's all the same handle across all of that. So
cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very good. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I hope you had a good time playing Stuntman with us this week. And you are more than welcome to come on for another episode at some point, where if you wanted to suggest the game, by all means, it's your game, your week.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'll look through some of my stuff, see if I can find some sleepers besides the two that I mentioned. It would be fun to try and get some exposure out to those games. So I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me on this. This was fun to have an objective, and like you said, to play a game that I know I should play and have an actual purpose to do so. So thank you.
Perfect. Not a problem.
Yeah. Thanks for
coming. That's it for us for this week. And then check out Evo next week.
Have fun.
See you later, guys.
Yeah. Peace.